You're listening to The Sizzle on Iron Skillet Radio and Iron Skillet Television.
You know who it is. You know what it is. It's The Sizzle here in the building with another Hot 5 and 5. Hey, we love bringing you this content, so make sure that you subscribe, like, and share this content. Always make sure you're getting the content on any platform you're on, be it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or even now Twitch. And listen, you can find our podcast wherever you find your podcast. Whichever thing is good to you is great for us. So make sure that you're looking for Iron Skillet Sports, subscribe, like, and then share with a friend. We appreciate it. We love you, and you love this content. You know who it is. It's The Sizzle, the talk of the 219, the hottest talk in the 219. Welcome to another edition of the Hot 5 and 5 here on The Sizzle, presented by Iron Skillet Sports. As we begin to talk about the NFL and what's going on in the NFL, and we talk about players and who's doing this week and who's making this fantasy move and what team is doing the over or the under, the problem we have now is with the Chicago Bears, where head coach Matt Nagy is determined to not play his best player, and so further, not just dividing the locker room, dividing the fan base, but dividing the whole country on the issue of if a player is ready to play or not. For some reason, we have no idea why he's being sheltered. We can assume because of the horrific line play by the Chicago Bears, which could get anyone killed at any moment. It's not just that. There's an issue that goes even further and even deeper, and we'll discuss it in a minute. But right now, I want you to listen to Kyle Brandt from the NFL Network and hear his take on what's going on in Chicago with Matt Nagy.
Here's my problem with this. Nagy knows more about quarterbacks than most people in the world. He knows more about this situation than everyone in the world. I can't tell him what to do. But I'm really done with some of the storylines that were getting screamed and bellowed on national TV last night by some people I really respect. We need to move on from this. You have to take them and wait. And people are still talking about Aaron Rodgers waited. It was 16 years ago. There's still Tom Brady waited 21 years ago. Patrick Mahomes waited. Patrick Mahomes would have been just fine. I'm actually starting to think the Chiefs might have cost themselves a Super Bowl run by benching him that year. I'm not even kidding.
I like that.
You can bring up those names. That's fine. Bring them up. But just don't forget there is a whole other species of names in this Justin Fields thing that I'd like to bring up right now. Thomas mentioned one of them in this segment. Roll it. What do you say to these guys? Everyone who's saying Rodgers, Mahomes. You're going to bench Cam Newton as a rookie? It would have been ridiculous. It would have been. He was a sensation.
Jimmy Clausen
there. Jimmy, because you were going to start Jimmy Clausen? No. Russell Wilson, right out of the gate. But you got to wait. No. Russell Wilson had it. You play him. Deshaun Watson had to wait a half to get on. Stupidest half the Texans have ever had to not play Deshaun Watson. You want another one? How about this maniac last year? Best rookie season by a quarterback ever. Only got on the field because of a crazy medical mishap. We don't know what would have happened. And now you're going to say you have to wait Justin Fields? I think you have one of those guys. Because Justin Fields is not small program, didn't play, opted. No, he played the biggest college football you could play. He dominated in every category, best competition you could play. He was teammates with Chase Young and played against him in practice, and yet he sits. And we got Trey Lance playing, we got Lawrence, we got Wilson out of BYU is starting in the New York media market, and this guy can't play. Why do they get to play with their toys and the Bears don't? I'm waiting for a reason, and I haven't heard one. I think you're messing this up, and I think you're sitting Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, and I think you got to let them go.
Now, naturally, I could point out the obvious that all of the quarterbacks that were brought up in that segment were all melanated quarterbacks. There was a question of if they needed to play and if they needed to wait, and the ones who waited were melanated. It's not really a hard thing to sell, and nor is it something that's disputable. But the reality is, when you have a head coach who is an offensive-minded head coach, when he is an offensive guru, he's the master of quarterbackism, he's the one who is the king of everything. One thing that the Bears have suffered from is not having good quarterback play when you brought in an offensive-minded technician. I mean, it's the line's fault. It's the quarterback coach's fault. It's the offensive coordinator's fault. That's why you had to take back the plays, and then you can't do that well because obviously you're not good at multitasking. Matt Nagy, you're letting other areas of your team go under the bus and get swept out in the ocean in the sea of your foolishness because you can't come up with a decision. You can't come up with a plan that's effective. You're ineffective. That's the long and the short of it. You are someone who is afraid, maybe not afraid of people, but afraid of the success that could be had without you. Afraid that someone could actually say, hey, as offensive coordinator, I can help move this quarterback along. But oh, no. You want to wait. You want to use the backup quarterback. What you've been good at doing, Matt Nagy, is finding backup quarterbacks and then masquerading them as if they were your main quarterback. That's the reason why they're backup. At this point in Nick Foles' career, and this point in Andy Dalton's career, they're backups. Nothing more and much less than what you have right now. All of the efforts and the shenanigans and the foolishness that went into being blessed with a Justin Fields will go to waste. And it's not just Matt Nagy's fault. And this is not a Nagy Pace situation. This isn't a Garpack situation. This actually goes to the heart of what's going on, not only in Chicago with the Bears, but Chicago sports as a whole. The real issue is who is the president of Chicago operations when it comes to the Chicago Bears. And if Ted Phillips, your non-football man, your money man, who's masquerading as a football guy, is the one leading your charge, then you have a problem. If the fact that you're waiting for a nearly 100-year-old woman to make decisions, supposedly the things that are best for mother because she comes from a lineage of Bear people, then you're in trouble. If the McCaskey family or the Hallis family hasn't been able to produce a great football mind in all this time, over 50 years, you can't find anybody who knows football, you're in trouble. And unfortunately for Justin Fields, the fear is that he's in trouble. And your hope is that he does not turn out the way Deshaun Watson did, and now in a situation where you're in limbo. There's only a finite amount of time. It's not infinite. So when it comes to having a good quarterback and having one that's effective on the field, you need to give him everything you can. And if the line isn't good, hopefully they will be inspired by this young man to play better, to block longer, to work on their technique. People, when they get open, they'll get separation. They will focus on the catch before the run. These are the little things that motivation can bring. But when you have someone like Matt Nagy, who's afraid of success, who's afraid of having success outside of him, and maybe afraid of his quarterback altogether, I think that's the ultimate thing here. You're talking about fear. You're talking about someone who's scared. He's scared to do a lot of things. They're scared to be great because they don't understand what greatness is. Now, we don't have that problem at the Sizzle. We know what greatness is because we're great all the time. But when you have someone who is purposefully sitting on the talents, and this goes back to the issue of, guys should be able to come into the league and play because, they should be able to come into the league. Yeah, okay, you can come into the league. But when you have someone like Matt Nagy, who is purposefully holding this team back for his own selfish reasons, there's a problem. The problem is not just Matt Nagy. The problem is not just Ryan Pace. The problem is the president of football operations for the Bears, which is the president of all things, which is Ted Phillips. And the problem truly is ownership. When it all comes down to it and when it all boils down, you look at one thing in that the Chicago Bears love mediocrity. They've been a team that's been mediocre all of their years in the NFL, and nothing has changed. Except for a few unmediocre seasons. You got the 85 Bears and the Lovie Smith era. Great. Was there anything done for all of the great Bear players who came to the Bears with effort, energy, enthusiasm, and wasted their talents? As a mediocre and lethargic ownership group and organization has rested on the laurels of their, oh, we're one of the foundation, we're great. You're not great. You don't even know how to market this thing right. You don't even market to the young people who could move this thing forward, the new generation. Those are coaches, players, and oh yes, probably the best player out of this year's draft. But hey, stay classy, Chicago. Remember to look for our exclusive interview with Coach Angela Hamblin Blakely from the region. You know who only does it the way we do it, which is the Sizzle, right here on Iron Skillet Radio and Iron Skillet Television.
Make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Iron Skillet Sports. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to Iron Skillet Sports on YouTube at Iron